Okay, so today we're diving deep into something pretty crucial for businesses,
Yeah.
especially those facing, those cash flow issues we all dread.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's accounts receivable factoring.
Right.
And we've got this great piece called Funding for Working Capital Shortfalls from Factoring Expert. And it's really fascinating.
It is.
So picture this, right? You're a business owner. You need to make payroll or cover a sudden expense, but your clients are taking their sweet time paying you.
We've all been there.
I know, right?
Wow.
So what if you could get that money instantly, like right now?
Well, that's the beauty of factoring, isn't it?
Exactly. But it's not as simple as just, selling your invoices, is it?
You got it.
So to help us break it down, I've got our expert here with us today to unpack this whole world of factoring.
Happy to be here.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is factoring, and how does it actually work in the real world?
Well, it's interesting because factoring kind of sits in this weird space between debt financing and like selling off an asset.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Basically, you're turning your invoices into immediate cash by selling them to a third party called the factor at a discount.
Makes sense.
They then take on the job of collecting the payments, and you get a chunk of the invoice value up front, minus their fee, of course.
Right, and this source we're looking at mentions they handle amounts from $100,000 all the way up to $10 million.
Yeah, that's a pretty wide range.
It is. It's huge. So this means it could work for, a tiny startup or even a massive company.
Precisely.
But here's the thing that really caught my eye. They specialize in what they call difficult deals.
Oh, yeah, those are always interesting.
They even mention character issues. What does that even mean in this context?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. Factoring can be a lifeline for companies that traditional lenders wouldn't even look at twice.
You mean like who?
Think about startups, right? They don't have much of a track record. Businesses with credit scores that aren't stellar. Even companies in industries that lenders consider risky.
Ah, okay. I see.
And character issues. That could be anything from past financial hiccups to anything that makes a lender nervous.
Gotcha.
But here's the key. If your customers have good credit, you might still qualify for factoring.
So it's almost like they're lending based on your client's credibility, not just yours.
Exactly. It flips the script on traditional lending.
That's a whole new way to think about it.
Yep.
And no audits or financial covenants? That almost sounds too good to be true.
I know, right? Especially when you desperately need cash.
Yeah.
But there's a trade-off.
Yeah, what's the catch?
Well, the factor is taking a risk by focusing on your customer's creditworthiness. And that risk translates into the fees they charge.
Right, of course.
Those fees can take a bite out of your profits. So you got to weigh that cost against the benefit of getting cash right away.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot, right?
Absolutely.
Speed and flexibility are super tempting, but you can't ignore the impact it might have on your bottom line.
Exactly. And there's another layer to this.
Oh, what's that?
Think about your client relationships. How might they feel about a third party suddenly handling collections?
Good point.
Some might be surprised, some might even feel uncomfortable. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else?
Absolutely. Got to be super careful about choosing a reputable factor.
What do you mean?
You need one with transparent practices, one you can trust. You don't want any nasty surprises down the road.
This has been eye-opening. I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of factoring.
It's a whole world out there.
So for our listeners out there, what are the key takeaways they should keep in mind if they're facing a cash flow crunch?
Okay, so first things first, understand that factoring is a real option, even if traditional loans aren't working out.
Right.
But do your homework, compare costs between factoring and other financing options, weigh that against the speed and flexibility it offers.
Okay.
And think about those client relationships we talked about. Make sure you choose a factor with a good reputation and one that's transparent about their practices. That's great advice.
Yeah.
I'm curious what industries come to mind where factoring might be super common or even essential. Something for our listeners to think about as they explore this further.
I'll leave that with you.
Thanks for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime.
And for our listeners out there, keep those questions coming, and we'll see you in our next deep dive.
See ya. Bye.